Destined to be in the hospitality sector, but innovative enough to break away from the cookie-cutter franchising model, South African-born restaurateur set up roots in South Africa, but the world became her oyster when she decided to expand her chain of operations in the lifestyle-orientated city of Dubai. Good day and welcome to this episode of Entrepreneurial Edge. My name is Tanya Habimana and I will be your host for the next 30 minutes. I'm talking about none other than Natasha Sideris, founder and CEO of Tashas Group. Natasha, welcome to the show. So I have to understand and know, how did you get started in all of this?
So firstly, Tanya, thank you for having me and listening to my story. I've been in the food industry for over 20 years, in fact, probably 25 years now. My dad was a restaurateur. I'd always vowed that I wouldn't get involved in the industry because it's a pretty tough one. But I started helping my dad out in the restaurants while I was doing my degree at Wits, and I actually studied psychology. And I was helping him out part-time, so I'd go to lectures in the day and then go and help him out at the fishmonger that he used to own. And you know, as the saying goes, if something really bites you and you start to enjoy it, and I really got addicted to the adrenaline, working with people, and of course a love of food. And the rest is, I suppose, history. You know, I really started to enjoy it. I completed my degree, and then of course got directly into the food business and worked obviously with my dad for a while at the fishmonger. Then went on to work at Nino's, and then opened my own Nino's, and then started Tashas. So I mean, I've really simplified it. There's been a lot of ups and downs with that journey and a lot of interesting things that have happened in between. But really, that's where it started. It was a part-time job that turned into a full-time love affair.
Yeah, and a part-time job to a whole load of good meals for the rest of us. But tell me, what was it like doing business with your family? Because you started working for your dad and then you went on to start Tashas with your brother, if I'm not mistaken. What is that like?
Correct. So, I mean, obviously, it's difficult working with family, but there are a lot of pros because, you know, your family's always got your back, especially when it comes to a dad and a brother. I think also it allows for a lot of open and honest conversations where maybe if you're not in partnership or you're not working with your family, maybe you're going to watch your P's and Q's a bit more. I think with family, you can be brutal and honest. So, really challenging at times, but at other times, you know, getting the best results because you can have those open and honest conversations. And I think my brother and I have made a great team. You know, I'm really very creative and the visionary of the company, and Saba is a great support in terms of operations. No one can beat him. Also equally creative and a great cook. But it's been great, and I don't think perhaps, I mean, I suppose it's a broad statement and I don't have a crystal ball, but perhaps if I hadn't been involved with family, maybe I wouldn't have stuck it out for so long. You know, my brother really is a good moral support when things are going badly, and he looks after the South African side of the business, which gives me ease, and at least I can and go on this journey of growing the international business.
And so from a support system, circle of trust, let's call it, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of the people that we speak to will tell us that their family is their support system, their family is their circle of trust, but then they do business with other people. So how does that work for you?
Well, for me, I think it's slightly different. I am lucky enough to be surrounded by some amazing friends who've also been very involved in the business. Two of them are Alex and Malpa, who actually do all of our branding and our social media. And they've been a massive support from the beginning. And really, I've had some individuals who've been working for me in Tashas for almost 17 years, both at head office level and at store level. So I wouldn't say that it's only the family that supports. It's work colleagues and very close friends that have become part of the Tashas network and part of the Tashas DNA that are really a massive support. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing and go on the next growth phase without those original supporters. And I suppose I'm rallying more support as I go along. But Tashas is woven into my DNA. Sometimes people say it's not healthy because I can't, you know, distinguish, and there is no line between what's my personal life and what is work. And I suppose that's the same for a lot of entrepreneurs. But certainly in my case, Tashas and the Tashas group is who I am. It's part of who I am on a daily basis. and I have a very, very big support structure, both on a personal level, but as I say, in the work environment, as well, it's a massive support that I have.
And when it comes to, you mentioned that you take care of the international expansion part. I want to take you back to that first moment when you realized that Tashas could become what it is today, that you could have multiple restaurants in different countries. How was that journey?
Well, not a lot of people know this, but when I started Tashas, I actually thought I was going to go back and continue studying and really specialize in the psychology and sociology field. And I thought I would open a cafe and it would be a hobby, it would have my name. And even though, I had long forgotten the romanticized idea of restaurants because I know how tough they are, I thought I could do both. And I opened Tashas, and it was a rip-roaring success from day one. I didn't have an end goal in mind. And I know people say you should always set your intention, but after I realized that it was successful, I really focused on the day-to-day. And I didn't think, well, I'm going to take this brand and I'm going to open 16 or 17 restaurants in South Africa, and I'm going to do a deal with a big a huge listed company, namely Famous Brands, and I'm going to open here and I'm going to open there. I really, really focused on the detail and on the everyday. So there wasn't a big picture plan. The plan was open one cafe, make sure it works, make sure you are giving the best quality food, the best service, looking after your staff and your customers, and let's see where the journey goes. And much of our growth has been completely organic and happened in that way. And although there's a little bit more planning involved now in terms of what's our next step, I mean, even if you look at when we're entering into the UK market now, it's the same attitude. We don't have massive plans for the UK. We're not saying we're going to open 200 and 300 and 400. Would I like to open a couple of restaurants in the UK? Of course I would. Let's just get the first one right. And it's been that same philosophy, the same philosophy when we opened in Dubai. We never thought we'd have 8 restaurants, soon to be, 12, 14 actually in the Middle East, almost doubling the size of the business here in the Middle East. No, that wasn't the plan. We started in Dubai 8 years ago. Let's open one store. Let's get it perfect. Let's get it right. I think a lot of people have forgotten that the food business, let me rephrase that. Rather, the food business has become sort of a money-making machine, and people have forgotten that we actually are in the restaurant business. And what does that mean? We're offering service and food. And I think for as long as the group is focused on that, the rest will follow. We, at heart, a restaurant business.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting perspective. And like you said, it's not something we actually hear a lot, especially when you're dealing with entrepreneurs that are maybe in the products business, where the focus is, or even what business school will tell you is start with the end in mind, know where you're headed, have your business plan sorted. But what you're basically telling us is a story of steady pace, steady growth, organic, and a focus on quality and on service on a day-to-day basis. But I want to talk a little bit more about this journey to having Famous Brands, a listed company, buy a stake in your business, and then you buying back your stake from Famous Brands. What are some of the lessons that you've learned from that?
Well, listen, first of all, I have no regrets about the partnership. In fact, Kevin Hedderwick is still mentoring me, and we talk on a monthly basis and sometimes on a weekly basis. So absolutely no regrets about doing the deal. I did the deal at a time where Tashas was ready to expand, and we were ready to go on our franchise journey, but we didn't really have the administrative tools and the structure that was required to go on that growth. So did the deal with them, managed to scale and open many restaurants. I went from a cafe owner with my apron on to now becoming an executive and a managing executive and having to learn all of those skills. So I learned a lot. We learned a lot about process, as I say. We learned a lot of administrative skills. And then I think it got to a point where the input that Famous Brands could give us really came to an end, and we were ready to stand on our own 2 feet. And that's when I approached Darren Healy, who was, a gentleman through and through, and said to him, listen, my ambition is to buy my business back. It wasn't an easy deal to do. It was a 2-year negotiation of back and forth, and bittersweet in a way because, we really had a great relationship. But obviously, the best possible outcome for me was to buy my business back. I now have complete freedom I can do what I want, open where I want, and of course reap all of the rewards, my brother and I. So it sounds like a fairy tale. There were times, where we didn't fit very well into the corporate structure because we are entrepreneurs and we had to learn. But all of it's been a learning curve, and I wouldn't change a thing. I think it happened for a reason. We did our deal for a reason, but very happy to have my independence and have my namesake back. I am the founder, so good to be able to own the business.
And now knowing what you know, what would you do differently in terms of raising funds?
Wow. Raising funds is an interesting one. And you spoke about business school earlier, because I actually haven't ever been to business school. And if I was talking to a young entrepreneur who hadn't been to business school, I would say to them, don't read a business book, because sometimes those things can hamstring you. Certainly a business book would have said to me, do not go and get your money from a loan shark, which I had to do at the outset. I had no other choice. A bank wasn't prepared to look at me when I started Tashas. A bank wasn't prepared to look at me when I changed my store in Bedfordview from the existing franchise that it was to a Tashas. I had no choice. And certainly business school would have said that's not the best route to take. So what would I have done differently in terms of funding? Nothing really, because I was put in a corner. I had a dream. I had to pay not high interest rates, exorbitant interest rates, with capital repayments to, in inverted commas, loan sharks. And I had no other choice. Had I not done that, I wouldn't be where I am today. All it meant is that it took a little bit longer to get here. And then in terms of funding the growth in the Middle East, we're blessed here because we've got an unbelievable partner who's got the same vision as us, and he has been financing really the growth of the stores in the Middle East. So we have a dual model here. We've got a franchise model, and we also own the restaurants. Whereas in South Africa, we are the franchisor, and most of the restaurants are franchised with the exception of 3, Hyde Park, Bedfordview, and Nelson Mandela, which are owned by my brother, myself, and a young lady called Melissa.
Okay. And so I want to hear more about those moments. You mentioned right in the beginning that there's been ups, there's been downs. Tell us about the best business decision you've ever made.
Wow. So if I'm allowed, I'm going to give you 2.
Okay.
One is taking the plunge and opening here in the Middle East. It has been phenomenal and one of the best decisions I've ever made. The second, of course, buying my business back, or maybe I should reverse those. Maybe buying my business back is the best decision I've ever made, and then the expansion into the Middle East. But they're not mutually exclusive, because me opening in the Middle East made me realize that I could actually own the business on my own, and that it would be worth it. And worst is, we are 16 years old. We've had 100% success rate. None of our stores have failed, and the stores that we have closed have been because landlords were either bashing the shopping centers down, and we were forced to close, for example, Athol Square. But I'd say worst decision is that I didn't listen to my intuition, and I opened a location in Dubai against my better judgment, and I allowed people to influence me, and the store didn't work. That I'll probably say is my lowest point, because I've never really closed the restaurant, so tough. It was a tough one.
Yeah.
But a good learning curve.
And quite a feat, actually, to be able to say that. Quite a big number of large restaurant chains are not able to say that they've never had to close a restaurant because it wasn't doing well. But you mentioned intuition, and you've studied psychology. I'm interested to know, to what extent does your knowledge or degree in psychology help you in business today?
I don't know how much of my psychology studies that I actually remember, and maybe they're somewhere embedded in my subconscious. But I think having a high level of EQ and emotional intelligence and being able to read people is absolutely critical in the food business. One, because you're dealing with a lot of staff members, and you have to treat everyone according to their personality. So you need to be able to adapt. You're not going to ask people to adapt. You have to be doing the adapting. Maybe your chef's got a certain personality and your waiter's got another personality and your MD might have another personality. So you've got to be able to do the adapting. So I think that's really important. And then, of course, you're dealing with customers, and you need to have a high level of emotional intelligence, certainly. And then I think you also need to know how to deal with stress, and having a good psychological mindset is needed, especially when you're going on an expansion drive as we are.
And when it comes to stress, how do you stay positive? How do you stay motivated?
So I suppose there's good days and bad days. We're about to open 4 restaurants in a very short period of time, so stress levels are at an all-time high. I am very blessed to have met probably one of the world's best performance coaches, a gentleman who's actually based in Johannesburg. His name's Richard Sutton. And I've known Richard for a while, but he has taken me on as a project, or as a client rather, and I've been with him for the last 2 years, and he's really taught me some very good skills in learning how to cope with stress. Some of those are, just taking the right vitamins, putting the right food into your body, making sure you do a bit of exercise every day, a little bit of meditation where you can, even though I struggle with it. And then I love to do cold water immersion and cold water therapy or cryotherapy, because it really helps with the stress levels. People think, and what Richard's taught me, is that you've got to do a lot, but all it takes is a little bit every day to make sure that you keep your stress levels under wraps.
I like that a lot, and I like that you've incorporated the psychological part, the mental part, as well as physical things that we can do, such as the food, the way in which we treat our bodies. Because a lot of the time we almost have these like diverging opinions, where on the one hand people will say to get rid of stress, meditate, and that's it, and on the other hand it's, well, look at what you eat, etc. And this is very much a holistic approach to it. But let's talk about your expansion into the Middle East. What was the first moments like? Did you experience culture shock in any way?
I think when you've got a premeditated concept of a place and you go in with fears, those fears are going to come true. So I made sure that when I came to the Middle East, I had put all preconceived ideas away. One, I didn't think, oh my God, I'm a woman entering a society that's very male driven. I didn't have those thoughts at all. I didn't think, I'm a woman trying to do business in the Middle East, it's going to be challenging. I didn't think, oh my God, their culture is different to mine. How am I going to adapt? I basically came here and did my thing. And I didn't let the geography of the place get in the way. People in the Middle East are unbelievably warm and welcoming. I think for any entrepreneur entering this country, if you're prepared to work hard and you have a good idea, it is a very supportive place. And listen, Dubai in many ways is similar to South Africa. I know you're not going to feel that way because of the heat, but in terms of a lifestyle, it really is very similar. It's especially similar to Johannesburg. It's a mall culture. People drive around. They do enjoy the outdoor activities. It's pretty similar to SA in terms of lifestyle. And then I'm Greek, so I'm born in South Africa, but my origins are Greek and my heritage is Greek. And I wouldn't say that the Arab and the Greek culture is very different in its warmth and its way. So it wasn't difficult for me to adapt. Dubai has become my second home. Very proud to be here and been fully embraced. And I've embraced Dubai.
And why Dubai? I mean, because a lot of South African companies will maybe start in South Africa, then move to SADC region, and then we see a lot of companies going to, let's say, Western economies, Europe, the US, maybe Australia, but Dubai as your first destination outside of South Africa. Why?
Okay, so, well, I'm a control freak. So for me, the distance was very important. So I had been approached to open in Australia and the States. And already those two were no-go for me because of the change in time and the distance that I would have to travel to be able to control. Because again, remember, my intention was never to move here. My intention was to open one and see if it would be successful. So I thought, my word, if I'm living in South Africa and I've got to travel to America, it's not going to work out well for me. And if there's a problem, I'm going to be on the phone at 2, 3, 4 in the morning because people are going to need to get hold of me. So just the pure distance and the time zone difference was a no-go for me. Then the UK, as a first entry for a South African company to go into the UK, specifically into F&B, the barriers to entry for F&B in London are frightening. Even now that we have 8 stores, soon to be 12, 14 in the Middle East, the UK, and we're opening in the UK, but it is still very daunting and very high barriers to entry. And then someone had approached me for Dubai, so I jumped on a plane. As I said, similar culture, very easy to do business. Mm-hmm. There was a big gap in the market for a product like Tashas. And then, of course, the magic 8 hours difference. You know, if there was a problem in the store at the same time as SA, 2 hour time change, I could be on a flight and be at the store 8 hours later to sort it out. So it was very easy for my brother and I to fly back and forth. And then, of course, my partner was a big factor, because I had met someone who had the same mindset, the same belief system as I do, the same vision, and, you know, just all the boxes got ticked.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The personal factors, the professional factors, and also your own way of operating as a decision-making mechanism to expansion. You know, if we follow, again, we talked about business books earlier. If you follow business books, the business books will tell us, well, look at geography, look at similarities in terms of culture, these type of things. But that may not necessarily work for the person that you are as an entrepreneur. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. But still on the topic of people, growing your team. I mean, you went from being, like you said, a cafe owner to running this huge restaurant chain operations, where I'm assuming that you now have a bunch of people that are working with you in operations and administration. How did you go about building that team?
I've got to tell you, just this morning I was looking around the office and thinking, oh my word, how did we get here? We used to be a team of 4, and now we're like 30 in the office in Dubai.
Yeah.
And Dubai is even more daunting, because we own our restaurants here. You know, we have over 700 people working for us that are directly employed by the company. So that's even more daunting. With every growth phase, there has to be change, which is not always comfortable. So I think it's a book by Reid Hoffman where he talks about, I think it's the guys who did Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And the story of Airbnb is that they ran their business and did absolutely everything for Airbnb. I'm talking about taking the photographs of the villas and the homes that people were going to stay in, and the apartments, and to styling them themselves, until they couldn't do it anymore. And then they had to employ a photographer, and they had to employ a stylist, and then they had to, and so on and so forth. And with Tashas, you know, at every point, I have run this business until it's gotten to a point where I can't do specific things in the business, and then I've had to employ people. And most recently, we've appointed a COO, which is daunting, because I've never had that. You know, I've only had the MDs under me, because the business had reached a point where it needs more structure. But absolutely frightening and petrifying, because again, I'm a control freak, and I want to touch and feel every aspect of the business, and I want to be involved in HR and admin and finance and. But it's not humanly possible to be able to control every aspect of the business alone. Yeah, daunting. And
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And you and I both, you know, there's something so satisfying, and also just, you can then, it's actually, you said the right word, control freak. You can then control and take ownership and make sure that the final product that is being delivered to your end client is exactly as you want it. So I completely understand, 100%. Yeah. But then tell me, what does the future of Tashas look like?
Look, just on that last one, for all the people out there and our loyal supporters, there are 3 things that I will never let go of for as long as I own the company, and that is the food, the interiors, and the people. In terms of customer experience, that will always stay with me, no matter how big we get. It's the big touch points that I'm not prepared to let go of, but certainly. Someone else can take over the headache of putting in process and systems for procurement and admin and finance and HR. It's not really what I love to do.
That's good to know. And with the future of Tashas, what does it look like?
So we are going to open in the UK and give it a twirl and give it our best shot, and hopefully people will enjoy our product and our service and our interiors. And then we have a new concept coming on board, which is called Nala, which is a luxury fast food, and a beach restaurant called Bungalow 34. And those are all sort of happening between now and March, April next year.
Sure, you've got a busy next 8 months ahead of you.
And we just opened Tashas in Linwood in South Africa.
Wow. Well, you're certainly busy. But tell me, any plans for the rest of the continent?
Not for now. I think we really have to be careful. And if you look at how many stores we've opened, a lot of other big F&B companies would say our growth is ridiculously slow. So 16 years, 24 restaurants. That's like a restaurant and a quarter a year. For most big food groups, they'd say, that's just too slow. But I do want to take things slowly. We're starting to ramp up a little bit now, and we'll probably land up opening 4 to 5 restaurants a year. What does the future hold? Hopefully the UK is successful and we'll open a couple of more. We want to open 1 or 2 more of our Greek restaurants, which is called Avli. A couple more flamingo rooms, but the growth's organic and we like to do everything cautiously. We're not on a massive expansion drive just to open everywhere. We're not opening for opening's sake. We're chasing the experience, and hopefully we make money along the way, but certainly not the numbers.
Okay. And if you could have a message to share to young people that are looking to enter the industry in one sentence, what would you tell them?
Just that they mustn't be scared. I think if they've got a good concept and they really believe in their idea, and even if it's going to be trial and error because nothing works straight away in the beginning, that they should go for it. I think we're living in a world where people are very cautious, and that makes sense. We've just come through COVID, and people are a little bit frightened to enter the F&B world and just to enter business in general. But you don't know if you don't try, and you don't want to have regrets. So my advice would be to young entrepreneurs who want to enter the F&B business, or anyone who wants to go into food and beverage, give it a go. If you've got a good idea, if there's someone else you can chat to about your idea, then that's great. Get a good location and just go for it. Don't let things hamstring you. There's always a solution. You got no money, you can make a plan. You've got a good concept, you can hone it. I think too often we let our fears stop our dreams.
Indeed. And that is where we need to leave this conversation for today. I want to thank you, Natasha, my guest, Natasha Sideris, founder and CEO of Tashas Group. And thank you to you, my audience. Until next time, it's a goodbye for now.